Hello again, and welcome back to my main channel on YouTube. The topic of this probably brief video lesson concerns the so-called races of humans. Still, in the mid and to some extent late 20th century, even respectable academics, such as professors, doctors, even other than medical ones, scientists, docents, licentiates, and teachers used this category. I would nowadays classify, put quotation marks around this category. Yes, when used properly and responsibly and moderately, it helps us to make sense of the great diversity of human populations regarding their basic facial appearance and other appearance, especially the color, or rather colors, of their skins, the shape of their eyes, the shape of their nose and lips, and so forth. However, we should remember that races are not specific or accurate categories anymore. During the thousands of years of recorded human history, there has been such a great deal of intermarriage and other intimate relations between the different human races that we have to put quotation marks around this term. Personally, I would use 6 major racial groups, all of whom, of course, exhibit a great deal of variation even inside themselves. The whites, blacks, then dark-skinned people, brown-skinned people, red-skinned people, and yellow-skinned people. The so-called whites are the major racial group, if you want to call them or call us as such, in Europe, in North America, then in parts of Latin America, and then in certain parts of Asia, mostly in the north. And now I'm talking specifically of Siberia, which encompasses most of the Asian portion of Russia. And then, of course, in Australia and New Zealand. Elsewhere, the whites are in a minority. Then the black-skinned people obviously are the majority racial group, once again, if you want to call them by that name, in Africa. In the Caribbean part of Latin America, probably most people are more or less black in their skin color, although because of interbreeding and intermarriages and other intimate relationships between the so-called racial groups, a significant minority of the Caribbean islands inhabitants are either brown or dark in skin color. Then Latin America, I would say in most countries, probably we could classify most people as being either brown or dark in various different shades in skin color, although in some or several Latin American countries, a sizable portion of the population could be classified as white in their basic skin color. And then in southern and southeastern Asia, we could say that many people are either dark or brown in their skin color as well as in parts of Oceania. Although there are also Oceanians who can be considered blacks, such as many, if not most, Australian Aborigines. However, the New Zealand natives, Maoris, could be classified probably as either brown-skinned or dark-skinned people based on what glimpses of them I have received. Then the so-called yellow-skinned people would form the majority racial group, once again, if you want to use that label, especially in China, Japan, South Korea, and North Korea, although we could also classify many Vietnamese people, Laotians and Thais and Cambodians as being yellow-skinned, although there are many brown-skinned and dark-skinned people in those countries as well. The so-called red-skinned people used to form the majority racial group in the Americas, in North America and Latin America, people who used to be called as Indians by the Europeans who settled in those continents, starting gradually in the 16th century. And they too have had interbreeding, intermarriages, and other intimate relations. So not so many of them could be considered as red-skinned anymore. And then again, you can find officially white people who are notably red-skinned, either by their genetic makeup or because they spend so much time under the sun. Here in the Philippines, you can find people who look black-skinned because they either choose to or have to spend so much time under the sun. And then major racially mixed groups include, for example, mulattoes. The previous US president, Barack Obama, although originally or officially classified as an African American, is in fact a mulatto because his late parents came from two different racial groups. His late father was a black Kenyan immigrant who actually left the United States and returned to Kenya. And his late mother was a white or Caucasian American. And interestingly, although Duchess Meghan, the former Meghan Markle, is classified as multiracial, her skin color is rather white, only to a mild extent brown or dark. And even her mother, who is classified as an African American, certainly looks more brown than black in her skin color, as far as her face is concerned anyway, based on my observation of her during the live televised broadcast of the wedding of Prince Henry, or Harry, and Meghan Markle in May 2018. And then so-called Sambos, descendants of mostly Latin American natives or aboriginals, and then Africans. Then mestizos, who are also quite common here in the Philippines, and descendants of Europeans, especially Spaniards or Portuguese, and then here in Asia, native Asian populations, or in the Americas, native North American or Latin American populations. And if we observe people in notably multi-ethnic and multiracial countries, such as the United States, Canada, Brazil, even the Philippines could be considered one, although the Philippines is not that much of a nation of immigrants nowadays. Indonesia, to some extent Malaysia, South Africa, to some extent let's say Nigeria, and to some extent, for example, Britain, France, and Germany. We can find many, many different shades of skin color and different facial shapes regarding, for example, the length and width of forehead, the width of eyes, the width of nose, the thickness of lips, and so forth. That although races make it possible for us to, in a rudimentary way, classify humans, definitely they are not to be regarded as accurate or precise categories of humans, because they aren't, especially not now in the early 21st century.